In the next episode of Children of Heroes, we travelled about hour and a half west from central London to Swindon, where we talked to Mr. Josef Horák Jr., son of squadron leader Josef Horák.
Thank you for participating in our project Children of Heroes. Your father served in the Royal Air Force during the Second World War. Can you tell us how he became a pilot and how he came to the United Kingdom?
After the invasion, he escaped through the Middle East, North Africa to France. From then, I think they went to an airfield just outside of Birmingham, where they were assessed. And from there on, he was an observer, then an air gunner. Then he took up pilot training, which I believe was done at Watchfield. Then bomber command as a pilot. He was in bombers, he was in 311. And they moved around to different air bases in the east of England and also coastal command. He was also somehow associated with training of Czechs in Paynton, in a big old country house. I think he was a sort of liaison officer between the Czechs and the British. That's the Czech medals and the checklist. Here we go. I'm told that's unusual. That was given to me in the church in Prague where the parachutist shootout was. That's just the arm flash on from his uniform and the two wings, so that was when he was a pilot, and that's the Czech Slovak badge.
Your father was a native from Lidice, a village that was completely annihilated by the Nazis in the aftermath of the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich. What was the reaction of your father on this terrible news?
Mother told me that another pilot from 311 turned up and said, could he have a word with my father? And that's when he was told that the entire village had been wiped out. All the men were killed and the women went to concentration camps. A few children, a very few, were sent to Germany. So all in all, I would imagine a fantastic shock. Can't imagine anybody ever recovering from a blow like that. Yeah, so the only survivor in his family was his sister. She only survived because she had a different surname.
His sister was pregnant when she was taken to a concentration camp. But she was taken into a Gestapo building in Prague and kept there until she gave birth. Then the baby was taken away, she never saw him again. All she knows is it was a girl, that was it. And then she was sent to Ravensbrück, and they didn't meet again until, I'm told, they met walking down the street in Koszalin. It was quite emotional experience, but the problem was that the excuse for destroying Lidice was apparently because of my father, which he knew wasn't right, because the parachutists were dropped by a special squadron, not by 311, A. B, the Gestapo letter was fictional, basically. Some fellow wanted to get a girlfriend, so he said, I'm going to join Pepe in the resistance until you won't see me again. That letter was given to the Gestapo. They put two and two together and made 18. And I'm told after the war, the mother of the girl came to see father and wanted compensation. Why she thought that was an appropriate contact, I've got no idea. But there it is. So I think that there are people in the village that still believe this rubbish, because my cousin is having some difficulty in getting a memorial put up to airmen. Now,
You can put up a memorial to his birthplace in Děti, no problem. And they've named a street after him in Děti, but the memorial has been vetoed and vetoed and vetoed. I don't quite understand that. Then he returned to the Czech Republic. On return to the Czech Republic, obviously he couldn't go back to his village as it had been destroyed, so he moved to Kladno, Krosiclavi. After the communist coup, Václav and me and Mother said we were going back to England to visit relatives and flew out. It was relatively easy. Father was being watched, and by devious means he got into Austria, where he was in a refugee camp. I think somewhere in here we have the Vienna transit permit, transit to Europe. Vienna. But he then sent a letter to Stross, the MP for Stratford-on-Avon. He contacted the Foreign Office. Foreign Office said, the Home Office said, okay, if you're going to vouch for him, he can come. And he was out within 48 hours. He then worked for a short time in a timber yard in Stratton and then rejoined the RAF. He was flying a Domini aircraft in bad weather. He crashed at Chipping. I think he was about 1 year in the RAF after the war, and that was it, finished.
What caused this crash, bad weather?
Well, I don't think it was ever said what the problem was. The RAF said it was pilot error, and although I can see their point of view, I think anybody that survived the war flying bombers is unlikely to be a pilot that's making errors. So I'm not entirely sure that I agree with that. When we went to the Ministry of Defence in Prague, they said, we investigated and it wasn't the Russians. That was a surprise to me because I didn't know they were investigating it. But he was writing articles against the communists to anybody that would listen. The BBC, Rotary Club, an American newspaper. Basically, if he could attack the institution, he would. So it's conceivable, to my mind.
Since 1992, one of the Lidice streets has been given the name of your father.
That's right, yes.
Have you ever been there to see the street?
I've been back many times. After the communists had left the Czech Republic, then I went back and been going back ever since.
Do you see it as a satisfaction for your father, the fact that one of the streets in Lidice has been given his name?
Yes, yeah, you appreciate it, yeah. The director of the memorial is very sympathetic, I think, and always greets me when we go there. And he announced that the death of my mother at this year's memorial, which I was grateful for. I find it a little surprising that Tonda Nespor and his colleague started the Society for the Memory of Josef and Josef Scribany, and they produced many pamphlets and leaflets over the years, calendars particularly. I don't think there's a residue of hate. The communist propaganda, which I think continued the German propaganda that it was his fault, was in existence for longer than the truth, and therefore is residual, and people resent them to a certain extent, I think. Some people are extremely nice, and then some people just don't seem to want to know.
You have worked mainly in the telecommunications sector.
Yes.
What made you decide to work in this field?
Technically, I was not too bad, but when it came to languages and English and things, I'm very bad. So I went into joined BT and for a number of years, and then the Overseas Development Administration wanted telecoms engineers in Zambia, so I went there as well for one contract, 3 years. Came back to Britain, found it was boring, so I resigned from BT and went to Malawi for about 3 contracts, about 9 years.
How was your life in Africa?
Great. The dying days of empire, you might like to call it. You went from being an ordinary working man to the top 10% of the population by just getting on a plane, and which was nice and simple. The downside was that by the time I returned, technology had moved on, everything had become digital, and I went from the expert to the idiot by the same plane journey. I then joined Siemens and stayed with them until I retired.
What impact would you say your father's story and your Czech heritage has had on you?
Well, I've met Czechs that have effectively called me a liar. I said, my father came and said, no, he didn't, you're lying, thank you. And we'll end the discussion there because I don't care whether you believe me or not. And the biggest memory I've got is a Land Rover arriving into the house I was living in Malawi, and a woman jumping out of Land Rover shouting "Dobry Den." She'd seen my name on the door, and so she said hello as she was Czech. So that was nice, and we played a lot of squash together and went on holidays after that. It was ended up a very nice arrangement. I told her that the Bastard's godfather was Masaryk, so she said, could she shake the hand of the hand that might shake the hand of Masaryk? Torturous, but nice.
Do you understand some Czech?
Very little. Next Pivo was the one that I particularly liked. I picked up words, but I did try and learn Czech on the internet, but I decided I was too old. The instructor was going to become very rich and I was not getting any better.
Is there anything more you would like to add?
Not really. I think you can't change people's opinion. If that's what they want to believe, then that's what they believe. And it becomes an act of faith. This is what they believe to be true, therefore it is. And you can't change it.